hardly making it, you know? And it's like, do fractions really matter if you don't know where you're going to be tonight? You don't know if you're going to have something to eat? You know, so I really want to get to know a kid on that level so that I can help them there so that then they can learn about fractions. Because you can't learn about fractions if you don't know where you're going to be that night. And this kind of reminds me of a kid that I've had, and I don't know if this is one of your questions, but I had a kid one year who lived out of his backpack. He would come, and he actually, in the end, he had moved 9 times in the semester. His mom would come, they lived in a car for a little while, and then it broke down, but she would come and she would tell him where they were going to be that night. And, you know, that kid was horrible in class, as you would probably guess. He hadn't showered for days. He'd moved again. They moved into a hotel one time. His uncle got drunk and smashed the door in the hotel room, and they got kicked out. And so then they're in the middle of the night, they have nowhere to go, they slept in the park. You know, and then he comes to my class, and I'm going, okay, we're having a test today. You know, where is his mind going to be? Is it going to be on the test? And then I'm not wanting to be that guy that says, oh my gosh, you got an F on this. What's your problem? Why can't you get this? You know, you think about Ari in the book. She didn't get something done that was due that day, and she was doing it in another class period so that she could have it ready. I mean, I don't want a kid to feel that anxiety about getting something done, because that's not what it's about. I mean, really, when you think about it, in your life so far, do you remember a teacher for the lesson that he or she taught, or do you remember that teacher for how they made you feel? And that, to me, is the most important part.
All right. What kind of things do you face on a daily basis as a teacher at the alternative school?
Well, I get cussed out a lot more than anybody I've ever known. But it's okay, because really, in my, when I first started there, it was like, no cussing, no gum chewing, no this, and I was like, yo, you're just totally stressing yourself out, because they're going to continue to do what they do. So I really loosened up on that, and I face lots of stuff. I face mothers. I have teenage mothers. I've got a girl who's got 2 kids right now. She's just turned 18, and I've literally had her since she was 13 years old. She started with me in 7th grade, and at Alternative you can teach several different subjects. Doesn't matter. I'm social studies and sociology. I have those degrees. But I've taught science, I've taught math, I've taught English, I've taught social studies, I've taught PE. It doesn't matter. At career ed, I taught that business. Anyway, so I don't know, I've just run into everything you can imagine. Kids who are homeless, kids who are dealing with gang problems, kids who are dealing with drug problems. I had a student who passed out in class constantly. And I'm not talking like a pass out, I'm sleeping. I'm talking like mouth hanging open, drooling all over his shirt, really out. And I later found out that he was having a problem with pills. He was taking Xanax. I have another student right now that I'm dealing with who is on heroin. And I know he is. I can tell by the way he acts. And I have to really walk that line of not offending him because I know what his problem is, and not offending his parents because they have no idea what he's doing. And one thing that's cool about Alternative, and I think I'm kind of getting off of the track, but if you know me, you know I always do that. But the cool thing about Alternative is like building those relationships that I have with some of my students, like Taylor, or like the girl that I talked about before who has the 2 kids and I've known her forever. It's like really cool because I can come to that student and be like, hey, and I did this with Taylor, so that's why I'm talking about it. What is wrong with this guy? What do you know? What's happening? Because I need to know, and I'm not trying to find out because I want to narc. I'm trying to find out because I want to save this kid. So, and that was really helpful, like knowing Taylor, and she knew something about this other student, and I was able to kind of get in there. That student is clean now. That was last year. So I'm really proud of that. We got him a job. He's working. But I really feel like if I hadn't had that relationship with Taylor last year, this kid, it's been about a year, a little over a year now. I don't know, and actually he even said in his conference to me and his mom, I never thought I'd make it this far. I thought I'd be dead by now. So that's what it's all about.
This question's for Miss Oko. Do you ever feel threatened in your apartment?
No.
Okay.
I don't. I taught in Cook County Jail when I was younger, and that's, maximum security inmates. So I'm used to the so-called threat, but I really feel like once you get in there and you get to know people, the only time that you would, I guess, when kids exhibit a threatening behavior, that's when they are the scaredest. They're trying to scare you because they have that much fear or anxiety inside of them. So, you'll let them chill if they're pissed off at you. Excuse my language. I work in alternative. If they're mad at you, you let that just simmer down. And then you take the opportunity a little bit later, even the next day if it has to be that, and find out really what was going on with them. Because a lot of times if they're in a threatening, coming at you situation like that kid that moved 9 times, he was so combative. And in the end, it's just because he's in there, in that tough guy person is a little boy in there who's scared to death. And that's how he reacts to fear, is to be a jerk, come at me like he's going to hit me, tell me that, call me every name in the book, call me F and B, call me blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to sit there and be like, doesn't faze me, dude. I don't care. You can call me whatever you want. If you're going to come at me and start acting like you're going to hit me, then I have to have you get kicked out. And I've had that a couple times. I've gotten in between fights before where I put my hand up and a kid punched my hand and he kind of looked at me like, what? Like he thought, like he was going to punch through my hand or something. I just did like this and I caught it. And he was like, yeah, dude, you're going. But, as I was in the middle of a fight one time where a kid pulled another kid's braids out of his head. So like his blood was flying everywhere and that was pretty gross. But that ended quickly. I didn't really feel threatened because I knew I wasn't the target. But in those cases your heart just breaks because you're like, why did it get this far? It shouldn't get this far. We should be able to talk about it before we get this mad. So sometimes as a teacher, now I'm kind of getting off the subject, sorry. You feel like, why didn't I pick that up first? Why didn't I hear that first? I needed to jump in there before it escalated to the point of physical violence kind of thing. I don't know, do you feel like, I think it's pretty chill. Why do you think that is?
That one group at the table I used to sit at, they like to talk about fights a lot. And I remember once last year, a girl told you she was going to slap you, and you're like, okay. Like, you didn't really believe her, but I was kind of looking at her like, what?
Have you ever had to comfort a student with problems at home? If so, how?
Oh, yeah, lots.
Yeah, you've already kind of touched base on that.
I had a student one time who was pregnant with her grandpa's baby.
What?
Yeah, and she told me that, and I didn't know whether to believe it or not, because it's kind of, sometimes when kids are really in need of attention, they'll make up whatever story they can make up so that they can get it from you. I mean, obviously I reported it, and it was true that it was her grandpa's baby, and, I have stuff like that, again, with that kind of a situation. Do you really care about fractions? Do you care about a complete sentence? You're carrying your grandpa's baby. You need help. That is, and she was not an old kid. She was in 9th grade. Yeah. So, I've also had a student who was 11 who was pregnant. Things like that. Like, some stuff is going on at home that is not normal for anybody. So, yeah, I've had lots of kids talk to me about getting hit. I've had to make calls to DCFS. So, as long as I've been there, I feel like I haven't had to make as many calls as I would have thought. I've made 4 calls. One was for a girl who was pregnant, and she was in 7th grade, and she hadn't been to the doctor yet, and she was like 7 months pregnant. And I was like, that's no good. So what happened when I called DCFS, is that they came out and got her in touch, took her to the doctor, got that all rolling. So it wasn't like anybody got taken away from anybody. Another time, I had a student who told me that she left her baby home all night alone, and that he had fallen off the bed. She thought that he would be okay laying on the bed, and he had fallen off the bed and was face down when she ended up getting home, and he was less than 6 months old. So I called on her. And sometimes when people are parents, if they're coming in smelling like weed, I'm going to make that call, because, you know, make your own decisions on whatever you're going to do. A lot of students at our school smoke weed. It's a coping mechanism. I don't agree with it, but I know that it happens, because there's a lot of pain going on, and they self-medicate. But if a student has a kid and they're coming in smelling real strong and hardly able to function, you know, that kind of a high is a little too much for taking care of a baby or small children. So I'll call for that. But lots of stuff goes on at home, and that's where, you know, I'm that white lady who doesn't know anything, but I'm from Lexington. But that's where I try to talk about, you know, I'm not just that white lady. I've had stuff that has happened to my kids. I've been around for a long time. Whatever you're going to say is not going to shock me, because I've been around for 11 years. You're not the first one. You won't be the last. So I think that helps too. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
You keep saying something about DCFS. What is DCFS?
That's
It's-
the.
You can answer.
Oh, that's okay. Tell me.
It's in a place where like they help kids in need, or like if something's wrong with a kid,
Like
like
something bad's going on.
like they're getting abused at home or something like that. They call DCFS and
Yeah.
they come and
Yeah, they investigate. Sometimes they
Yeah.
take the kids and put them in foster care. DCFS stands for Department of Children and Family Services. And as a teacher, I'm a mandated reporter. So like if Taylor were to tell me, Miss Selko, my dad's been beating me, please don't tell anybody, please don't tell anybody, what do I do? I'm going to tell Taylor, thank you for telling me, and I'm sorry I'm going to get you called, but you know that I'm a mandated reporter and I have to report this. And then it'll go from there, but I'll always be supportive and I'll always care. It's just that I have to do what I have to do. I can lose my license as a teacher if I don't.
And then our final question was, have you ever seen students in a classroom have problems with making friends? And if you have seen this, how has their absence of friends affected their
Can you
learning?
say it? I'm hard of hearing.
Um,
I turned my hearing aids up, but I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry.
Have you ever seen students in your classroom have problems making friends? And if you have seen this, how has their absence of friends affected their learning?
Well, I have seen that because, like, I'm going to use Taylor as an example. She didn't know anybody when she came in. And she really kept to herself, and I think that she was drawn a lot. And to me, I felt like she was in a pretty bad place. And I didn't know if meeting new people, especially knowing her personality, would have been a good thing for her right then. So I tried to be her friend a little bit, as much as I could, because obviously we're not in the same place in life. But I think with other students, once I feel that vibe, if I know that, let's say, Kiki's over here and she is pregnant with her first kid, and I have Akira over here who's got 2 kids. Kiki doesn't know Akira in real life, they do, but if she doesn't know her and she doesn't know her, but she's going through the same experiences that she is getting ready to go through, I'll introduce them, or I'll say something to the person that I already have a relationship with, and say, hey, could you talk to, I had actually a better example. I had a girl named Bibi, and she just had a baby, and I was like, hey, could you talk to Mika? Because Mika was pregnant with a baby, and she was a freshman. And I said, and Bibi was